I'm here with Dr. Luc, and we are recording Sundays with Dr. Luc. These lectures will come available in several parts during the rest of this year. Dr. Luc, can you explain which topics you're going to do?
Yes, I want to really give topics from the bottom up, in other words, from the basement up to the top. In other words, how to build up a case so that anybody, beginner or advanced homeopath, can profit from it. For instance, I would like to start with a topic, and each topic is about 30 minutes. The first topic I would start is basically the meeting between Jung and Hahnemann. Why do I say those two icons? Because both of them, interestingly enough, although they're in a different century, they could have learned tremendously from each other to improve their practice. Okay. Now, if they both could have learned from each other, you understand that that first topic, you can learn, every homeopath can learn from what they could have learned. That is my first topic, just to give you an interest. So here are two geniuses, and yet they could have learned from each other if they knew about each other. The second topic is a problem that I have seen all over the world, and it's really ubiquitous. It's everywhere present. It is actually how to translate the language of the patient into the rubrics. How do we get this use, the good use of our repertorium? But if we can translate the language or the gestures, even what the patient shows in gestures, in words, we cannot translate this in rubrics. What's the use of our synthesis? What's the use of our repertorium? And how can we even resolve a case? So I have, in that particular topic, I will show different pointers that make it easier for any student, beginner or advanced person, and as I said, most people have very difficulties with it, to actually encourage them, to give them pointers that make it easier for them to do this particular exercise. And of course, each topic I will give a practical examples with it too. Another topic I would say, the third topic, would be how actually the first important steps to finding the simillimum. What do I mean with that? There are many different steps, but if we start on the wrong foot, it goes completely wrong. So we start with one point, and I will follow the 6th edition of the Organon. We start with an aphorism, and we build up in the next 15, 20 minutes to what other steps we need to do. It takes about 30 minutes to each, definitely following the aphorism in the 6th edition of the Organon, and do it. And this is, but of course, good for any particular case that will come to your office. So how to do, make sure to find the simillimum by following the 6th edition of the Organon, step by step, just in 30 minutes. Another topic would be then, of course, once you find the simillimum, the main thing is, as Kent always said, it's more difficult to maintain the simillimum. Find the simillimum, you can get lucky, but maintaining is actually more difficult. So I would give it an additional topic. The next topic would be the first important steps to maintaining, to do the management, to maintaining the simillimum. Again, following the 6th edition of the Organon with the particularly aphorisms, and this would be very helpful and straight from the Organon, and helpful for anybody who does see any case in the practice. I would certainly, one of my next topics would be also give a small building on this particular previous topics. I would actually give some simple case that people would come in your office and they talk like this to you, and I would guide you, all of you, how do we find the rubrics, and so on and so on. What additional questions do we ask? What miasms do we see? And so on and so on, so that we ask the right questions. But that's building up on the previous topics, as you understand. And then, of course, I'm open to any suggestions. As we go along, I have many more topics, but I would also be open to discuss interesting topics, interesting for everybody, to actually get answers to, or to get a topic, given by the listener, by the patient, by the practitioner, asked for me and say, what can you discuss this particular topic? I would be happily doing this. But my main goal is with this whole Sundays with Dr. Luc is actually to build up from the bottom to the top, because I can give more and more interesting things, even dream interpretation, certain aspects. Why would we actually even need dream interpretation in the practice when we think we can find the similum always, following the 6 edition of the organon? Well, remember the first topic. What could Jung have taught Hahnemann, and vice versa? That already, the answer will be already in that topic. So that, and then of course I can discuss this, even parts of dream analysis and vice versa, what's important for you in the practice, and so on and so on. So this is my goal with this particular practice, to make it available to any beginner and any advanced practitioner, because we all need that help to actually get on the right track. And the only answer is, the only key to the success is to be successful in your practice. That will show by itself. All the rest doesn't count. If your patient is pleased, he will come back. If he is not pleased and there's no results, you never see them back. And you can ask yourself whatever it is, but most likely it is because we are not able to help the patient adequately. This pathway I can explain in short.
Yes.
The pathway of delusion, compensation, and consequences. Yes. But basically what it really shows is every individual, every patient that comes into your office. Because every patient has what we call the conscious life, the personal conscious, as you see here to the right. And of course, we also have the personal unconscious. And in between, you see the transition in between, because these two entities are not separate from each other. They are actually basically like an homeostasis. They are really linked to each other and flow into each other from unconscious to conscious. In other words, you will see with your patients that the unconscious actually leads the conscious more than anything else. So what do we see in the practice? We see in the practice they come in with their conscious life. But what does any patient wants to talk to you about? What do they want to dissolve? What they want to show to the doctor, to the practitioner? What do they want to actually expose about themselves? Well, what they want to expose about themselves, this personal unconscious, is not the whole consciousness. No, it's what they want you to know, what they want to show, not who they really are. Because as you see, the personal conscious has also what we call the persona or the mask. How do they want to present themselves to the doctor? Okay, basically, this particularly personal conscious. So what they want to divulge to you is basically only what they want you to know, not the bad things, about themselves, the shameful things, the very even painful things. I give you once an example. I had a patient once, and she on purpose didn't tell me that she just broke up with a person and she was completely grieved. And when I asked, why did you not tell me? She said, well, I didn't think it was important. See, that's, of course, their viewpoint of it. But that's basically what always happens. So the patient will only divulge to you what they want to divulge. Not the shameful, not the painful, not the really bad things about themselves, not even the shadow. You have the very clear things about themselves they want to tell you. I am this good. I'm this is who I am. So in other words, every patient presents himself only with half of who they really are. It's not that they lie. The patient doesn't lie. He doesn't want to divulge it. That's all. There's a big difference. And we need to actually probe. So imagine we actually take our simillimum on 1/4 of the patient comes into us. 1/4, 1/2 of the personal conscious, and nothing about the personal unconscious, because we don't ask them about the shadow. We don't ask them about delusions, what they have, be it psychotic, syphilitic, or psoric delusions, but they are delusions, okay? So delusions are always syphilitic, basically. They're always hiding. So we don't ask those questions, and of course, people will not divulge it unless we probe nicely, not like a prosecutor. for step by step, nicely, we ask them what, certain questions. And of course, even if what I usually did too in the practice, I would even send the patient out. And if they were, let's say it was a husband, I would ask the wife coming in and ask the same questions. And I would, of course, from family members, from friends and family members, you hear the truth sometimes if you want to hear the truth. But of course, we want to hear the truth as practitioners. But, so I would send the patient out. Same thing even when the mother comes with a child. I would actually send the mother out and I would ask the child by itself. And you can imagine how many things I could hear that are clearly because I had a good rapport with the child. I approached the child, with their attitude. I wasn't condescending. I wasn't really harsh on them. I just became friends with them. And they were really divulging things to me that the mother never would. Okay, so this is important. So that's why we need to, as you see, this whole pathway of delusions, compensations. What do people do to hide these things? That's the compensation, right? What do I do? Well, I do this. What are the consequences? The consequences often are not very good because the patient will never grow, so to speak. They never will want to understand it. Well, they want to understand it, but they don't believe it's going to be possible on the top of it. And that's another thing that happens. So they just need to be step by step, just like every homeopath, step by step. They need to be convinced step by step that what I ask is necessary for them to help. But it's not jumping from something basic to something very high. There's not a jump like that because they never will be able to follow that neither. No, even when it's a child, I need to speak in their language, in their particularly conscious function, the dominant conscious function of the person. I need to speak in their language, and that will give me the best result. I never had any problem, even about asking about sexual things to women. I didn't ask that as the first question, obviously, but as we went on, I could always ask that question and never had any problem hearing the reality at all. And that's really what we look at. This pathways of delusion and compensation tells you how in reality we think we see the totality of the person, and yet we see only a part, 1/4 of the patient information coming to us in the practice.
Mm-hmm. And you once said that if you prescribe on the consciousness, you prescribe a simile. And
that's right. And as you understand, since you prescribe on the personal conscious, you have 1/4 of the person, right? That means not even a close simile, because a close simile could help you moving the case forward. But you're going to be a simile that's far away from the nucleus of the suffering, for sure. So that would be also not very good. By the way, this is part of it, what Hahnemann could have learned from Jung.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this I can show in this first topic, and I can elaborate about that, but that's, and vice versa, of course, like I said, with aphorism, what Jung could have learned from Hahnemann, that's for sure.